Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nehal Sanghavi. I'm with the Development Partnerships Office at USAID India. It is my privilege to be involved with this afternoon's event. We've got a number of wonderful speakers who are going to be speaking about a really great program that I personally have known for several years now, a program that I think we're all very proud of. Without further ado, let me first hand over the floor to Mr. Rao, who has recently taken over the reins of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Rao, thank you for being in the position you're in. We have a long-standing partnership with IACC that we're proud of, and we're excited to have you on board so we can continue to strengthen that. Over to you, Mr. Rao.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ramona Hamzaoui, Acting Mission Director, USAID India. Ms. Montgomery Sims, Executive Director, Business Development and Partnerships, WorldFish. Distinguished panelists and speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege and honor to be part of this virtual program on Fish and Progress Investor Forum meeting. Let me begin by speaking about few words about IACC, which is known as Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. IACC is one of the apex bilateral chamber having nearly 2,000 members representing a cross-section of Indo-US business community. For last 53 years, we have been involved in strengthening bilateral relations between both the nations in India and the United States. Pan-India, we have about 10 offices. We have worked closely with USAID and several projects, as mentioned by Mr. Nehal Sanghavi. IACC is happy to associate with USAID and WorldFish towards implementation of this project in the state of Odisha. The project aims in providing better nutrition, inclusion, and entrepreneurship through fish and aquatic foods. I'm sure speakers after me will watch for it. Odisha, as you all know, is a rich state with abundant natural resources and wildlife. It has a coastline of about 485 kilometers. Having such vast wetland diversity, the state government effort in preserving and conserving fisheries through sustainable aquaculture and inclusion of fish diet in the rural population would help addressing challenges related to undernutrition as well as support livelihood. It is, I think it is livelihood for many people in the state of Odisha. The importance of inclusion of small indigenous fish in diets of vulnerable tribal and backward communities would certainly help in providing nutrition to the people. This is a very laudable effort by the state government. The project seems to be extremely promising. IACC is proud to be part of this initiative, and we look forward to work closely with USAID, WorldFish, and the state government in promoting such initiatives. Once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be part of this prestigious and important event. And I wish you all the best. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Mr. Rao. Without further ado, let me request our Acting Mission Director, Ms. Ramona Hamzaoui, to provide some opening remarks as well. Over to you, Ramona.
Thank you very much, Nehal, and thank you, Mr. Rao. So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, it's really my great pleasure to be with you all today. And I'd like to begin by thanking Mr. Rao and his team for hosting this important event. IACC has been a valued partner of USAID India since 2014. And although, like many of us, I would have preferred meeting with you all in person in Odisha and visiting some of the fish ponds and meeting with the women's groups, I really commend everyone, WorldFish, and everyone's ability, the government, to adapt to the new normal as a result of the pandemic, and IACC for hosting this event online. So thank you very much. For those of you unfamiliar with USAID, we are the US government agency that leads international development and humanitarian efforts to save lives, reduce poverty, strengthen democratic governance, and help people progress beyond assistance. So a key focus of our development program is a commitment to private sector engagement and developing partnerships to maximize the impact of our development programs. And I'm pleased to be able to highlight this aspect of our work today. Private sector engagement is not only a core USAID priority, integral to enterprise-driven development, but it's also part of the Government of India's approach to solving complex challenges. So together we recognize that the private sector is an important stakeholder in driving and sustaining development gains. And today you all are playing an unprecedented role in creating and shaping opportunities that improve the lives of vulnerable people and communities that are also a priority communities for USAID. In India, USAID is partnering with the private sector across our portfolio in health, water and sanitation, education, clean energy, and of course, in food and nutrition security. And I'd like to share just a few examples with you today so you get an idea of the breadth and the different type of partnerships and private sector engagement that we can talk about. Our focus is on sustainable market-based solutions and mobilizing private investments for scale, as well as deepening our collaboration with the private sector in coordination with the Government of India and other key stakeholders. In one example, to support the Government of India's goal of eliminating TB, tuberculosis, by 2025, we launched the Corporate TB Pledge Project, partnering with US, Indian, and multinational companies to reach that goal. And since the launch of the project in 2019, over 100 companies have committed resources to end TB, and over 100,000 new people are reached every month with TB awareness messages and services. So although USAID has identified several different approaches to private sector engagement, I'd like to take a minute to highlight the mobilization of private sector resources through corporate social responsibility funds, or CSR. So as the world's first country to make CSR mandatory, India has unlocked tremendous amount of capital that can be used for social good. The challenge for corporations is finding trusted and reliable organizations and endeavors for their CSR resources. Everybody wants to have impact with the funding that they put forward. So to address this, USAID has been working with partners such as IACC to identify projects and organizations that companies can feel confident will use their CSR investments wisely and effectively. One of our most successful examples of partnering with the private sector is in the water and sanitation sector. USAID leveraged the CSR funds of Honeywell India and partnered with the Safe Water Network to develop a model where water kiosks can be operated as viable profit-earning enterprises that provide safe drinking water throughout the day to underserved communities at affordable prices. So under this model, 50 kiosks that provide safe drinking water to 3,000 people have been built across Hyderabad. And this model has been so successful that more partners have joined the network, and not only providing safe drinking water, but also messages on healthy sanitation habits and COVID-19 safety measures. Since 2017, USAID has supported WorldFish through this activity, the scaling nutrition-sensitive fisheries technologies and integrated approaches through partnership in Odisha. And I'm really pleased that I've also worked with WorldFish since my days in Bangladesh, where we also had another very successful program. So the activity here in Odisha is providing hands-on training to families and women's self-help groups on scientifically raising fish in family-owned or community-leased ponds. And the project also supported women's self-help groups to hygienically dry fish using low-cost solar dryers. These type of interventions have helped make affordable, nutritious food available to thousands of people from marginalized communities, as well as economically empowering hundreds of women who traditionally were excluded from or marginalized in the fishing business. So I'm pleased to share with you that after 3 years of dedicated efforts, the project recently reached an important milestone. On November 10th, as I'm sure our WorldFish colleagues will talk about, the WorldFish signed an MOU with Odisha government's Women and Child Development Department to apply the interventions at government-funded village-level women and child care centers to address the malnutrition challenges among this disadvantaged population, potentially benefiting thousands of children and pregnant women. So upon the successful completion of the 6-month pilot, the Odisha government plans to scale up interventions across the state. And I know that the WorldFish team today has prepared an in-depth presentation, and they're going to share their lessons learned from working with different stakeholders while implementing the project in Odisha, as well as opportunities for future collaboration to maximize the impact. So I'm really looking forward to today's presentation, and I thank you all for your active participation as we share the lessons learned from this partnership and look to expand private sector engagement to achieve important social impact goals. Thank you very much. Back to you, Nehal.
Thank you, Ramona. And before I turn it over to the next speaker, Mr. Rao, you heard Ramona speak about Hyderabad, and I believe you're down there, based in Hyderabad right now. Once we are able to travel, we'd love to show you some of the other projects that we're working on through public partnerships down in Hyderabad. So
Sure.
we'll block your calendar once we're able to make it down there again.
Hopefully it will happen in the first quarter of next year.
Yes, hopefully soon, and we'll share a plate of biryani over lunch during that time too. Great. So I'm going to next turn it over to Mr. Simas. Sir, you do something for WorldFish, which is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm also part of the partnerships team at USAID, and you're part of the partnerships team there. Would love to hear some remarks from you through that lens. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Nehal. Good afternoon, Mission Director, Mr. Rao, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Montgomery Simas, and I am the Executive Director of Strategic Partnerships and Business Development at WorldFish. It is, I'd like to start by thanking our two convening hosts, the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce and USAID, for welcoming us today, along with our partners in the government of Odisha, so that we can share the story of a very exciting project, investing in fish for the future in Odisha province. It goes without saying that without committed partners and donors, we are unable to scale at impact and introduce our science and aquatic food systems expertise to a wide variety of people that can benefit from it most. So we're very grateful for the opportunity to work in India and work with close partners such as yourselves. Just brief background to WorldFish. We're an organization 45 years old. We are a science-based nonprofit that is focused on aquatic food systems. We are active in more than 12 countries across Asia and Africa. And we're particularly proud to be active in India. In fact, India has been designated by WorldFish as a priority scaling country, which means that we hope to grow our activities and our presence and our impact very actively in the days ahead. WorldFish is focused on a handful of main objectives. These include sustainable aquaculture, small-scale fisheries, nutrition and value chains, inclusive, gender-neutral economic development, and combating climate change. And in recent years, we are very excited to be working much more closely with the private sector to use the power and leverage of private investment and commercial know-how to take our science and some of our innovative technologies and scale them for greater impact. That's why we're really excited to be with you folks today. As the mission director mentioned, WorldFish and the government of Odisha took an important step quite recently on the 10th of November, 2020, to sign an MOU that was going to scale the project that was improving livelihoods and the nutritional status of women, particularly in Odisha province. Through this MOU, WorldFish will partner with the government to empower women through small-scale aquaculture activities and pave the way for two fish-based products, fish powder and hygienically solar dried fish, to be included in the food rations for women and children in 50 districts throughout the province. We believe this initiative will demonstrate that fish can be used to both boost livelihoods and nutrition. And over the next 30 to 40 minutes, my esteemed colleagues from WorldFish will walk you through all the different elements of this project and why we believe this is a very compelling opportunity, not only for the people of Odisha, for our partners such as USAID, but also for commercial partners who may be listening in. For as investors and business people, I think you folks can appreciate the opportunity to launch new entrepreneurs and sustainable commercial businesses, starting at a small scale, but having them grow and grow into the future. We believe the return on investment opportunity is significant, not just in environmental terms and nutrition terms and social terms, but also in terms of helping launch new women-led businesses. So as you listen, we welcome many questions, and we hope that you may ultimately consider perhaps sharing some of the CSR funding that the mission director talked about for other programs as we look to scale this program out in India together ahead. So with that, I will turn it back to the host. I believe the next step is perhaps a 2-minute video that my colleagues have produced, and then followed by some actual in-person presentations by my scientific colleagues. So again, thank you to the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce and USAID, and thank you all for listening in.
Thank you, Mr. Simas. We are going to show the video now. And after we show the video, would love to hear from some of your colleagues, Mr. Simas, about some of the nuances of the project, like you just mentioned, especially 2 things that stood out for me. Number 1, would love to hear more about the gender lens that you alluded to, because I think this is a really great opportunity for women. And then also I have a question, and that question is, why should we be engaging in a project about fish in a state like Odisha, which is so familiar with fish? So those are the types of questions I hope we hear about in a bit. But before then, let's please screen the video. Thank you. Great, thank you for that. Our next speaker is Dr. Mohan. Dr. Mohan will bring a different approach to this conversation in that he is a scientist. Although the video did touch on the 2 points I mentioned earlier, we'd love to hear more. So can I please request Dr. Mohan to take the floor?
Thank you very much. Diana? Yeah. Thank you very much. At the outset, big thank you to USAID for supporting this project and for giving us an opportunity to embed the project activities with the government of Odisha, so that the tools and technologies what we have developed and validated in other countries could be taken up at a higher scale to achieving some impact. So we are very pleased with the support which we have received from USAID. And now thanks to IACC as well for connecting us researchers to the private sector and giving us an opportunity to tell some of our innovations which could be used for making some small to big investments which could have an impact on the community and the people. So what my responsibility is to just very briefly tell about WorldFish, and then my colleague Arun Padiyar will talk about some opportunities for short-term investments, and my senior colleague Dr. Shakuntala Tilsted will talk about some opportunities for transformative impact and opportunities to bring about real change. Next one, Diane. What is WorldFish? All of us, most of you may know WorldFish. Our vision is inclusive world, which is of health and sustainable blue planet now for and for the future. Our mission is mainly to end hunger and advance sustainable development goals through science, innovation, and to transform food and land and water systems with aquatic foods for healthy planet. And WorldFish is one of the 15 CGR centers and the only CGR center that's dealing with fish and aquatics. And as some of you might know, CGR is transforming towards so-called one CGR system, and WorldFish will be playing a major role in the role of aquatic food systems in transforming the global food system discourse and the agenda. Next one. WorldFish, as Monty Simas, my colleague, told, we are a global organization. We work in more than 20 countries, and we have the concept of what is called focal countries and scaling countries. The focal countries are where most of our science gets done, either the field science or the lab sciences gets done, validated, science is generated, data is gathered. And once we have evidence that some of the tools and technologies are working, we normally take it to scaling countries, be it a fish breeding program, be it a nutrition program, be it a digital fisheries or a small scale program. So this is the concept of WorldFish with respect to focal and scaling countries. And as you can see, we have several focal and scaling countries in Asia and in Africa. And we have been in existence for the last 45 years. And WorldFish has contributed to several global public goods and many flagship products, and major impacts with respect to genetics, breeding, and recent in years, major impact with respect to nutrition-oriented programs for the human health. If you look at our research programs, the three major priority impact areas around which we work. The first one is around impacts around climate or the environment sustainability. Under this, we have major focus on diverse aquatic food production systems with some high-end science supporting genetic programs, disease programs, fish feed programs. A lot of work on performance system analysis, where we try to understand how different systems perform and what are the greenhouse gas impact footprints and how the systems can be optimized so that we do better with respect to fish production. There has been a lot of focus recently with respect to reducing fish loss and waste. The second major area is social and economic inclusivity. And here there is a lot of social sciences work trying to integrate gender, trying to empower youth, trying to make the fish affordable, accessible, and available to all people. And the last one is around human health impacts. And more research funds are getting focused on what we call One Health, where we try to really bring in the aspects of environment health, the aspects of animal health, in our case, fish and aquatic animals, and the aspects of human health. So moving forward, WorldFish, as part of the One CGR, will be focusing on these three major impact areas: climate, the social and economic inclusivity, as well as nutrition and human health. Next one, please. Next one. These are sort of our beneficiaries. If you see a wide spectrum of beneficiaries, right from small scale farmers, fishers, producers, on various value chain actors, to local communities, to the scientific communities, public sector, private sector, the One CGIAR, and the young researchers, investors. And here we are really looking forward to having active conversation with private sector players and the investors who have the opportunity to divert some of the CSR funds for some public goods and for getting nutrition outcomes for those marginal and deserving communities. Next one, please. If you look at our major contributions to SDG, so I think number 2, the zero hunger is one area where almost all our research activities, both R&D activities taking place in more than 20 focal and scaling countries, are in one way or other related to the SDG number 2. And increasingly, we are also moving towards contributing towards SDG number 4 by driving the agenda of sustainability and better farming practices and efficient farming practices. Next one, please. Next one, please. Yeah. WorldFish in India. WorldFish in India is fairly recent. Even though we had a satellite fish breeding program with the Ministry of Commerce right from 2011, our major activity started in 2016 with the technical collaboration with government of Odisha. And this project made a lot of difference by the way we were working embedded within the government system and trying to handhold and influence the policy and implementation of new tools and technologies. So this program has been very, very beneficial in bringing about small to big changes, the way programs and schemes are implemented by the government, and we are bringing science to that. And recognizing this particular project, I think we won the USAID India IPP project because of our strong partnership with the government. And I'm very thankful to USAID for recognizing our embedding with the government to be one of the factors for considering our project. And this project has done very well. And in this project, we have been able to really achieve convergence, not just with fisheries people, and also bringing in Women and Child Development Department, Department of Panchayat Raj, Department of Irrigation, and also Department of Public Health. So this is where I think we have really derived a lot of synergy from convergence, and we are also working with a major project in Assam with the support from World Bank. In all these cases, our technical handholding is largely around the areas of sustainable production, sustainable small-scale fisheries, and ultimately getting the best out of the fish supply that's coming from aquaculture and fisheries towards the human health and human nutrition. And one of the major aspects of the USAID project is actually scaling innovative nutrition sensitive approaches. So how can we make our production systems and our capture fishery systems more nutrition friendly, more nutrition sensitive, either by optimally using it or reducing the waste, or by better utilizing the fish and fish products. So, so that way India program is developing fairly good, and WorldFish has a major ambition to develop the India program in a bigger way as it's a scaling country moving forward, even under the one CGIAR framework. Next one. Yeah, let me pass it on to my colleague, Dr. Arun Padiyar, who will talk more about specifics of Odisha. Then Dr. Shakuntala will talk more about specifics of the transformative approaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Hi.
Dr. Padiyar.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arun Padiyar. I am the project manager for Odisha WorldFish project. As Dr. Rao also mentioned earlier, the thing is that fish is an integral part of diet in Odisha, and almost 95% of the people in Odisha consume fish. They are fishmongers, they love fish. And so, but the main issue is the availability. So they import a lot of fish from neighboring states to cater the demand of fish in the state. So in our program in Odisha, we use the power of fish for improving the livelihoods and nutrition for women and children. So next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So there are various activities which we are implementing mainly with fisheries department in Odisha. Some of them, which are very important in this context here, is the first one is sustainable pond fish farming. Mainly we are promoting nutrition sensitive carp mola polyculture in all the 30 districts of the states. So we are present because of the government machinery which is promoting fish farming in all the districts of the state. Then second one is that safe and hygienic dried fish production using low-cost solar dryers by women SHGs. Third one is the fish farming in GP tanks, Gram Panchayat tanks or community tanks, which is present everywhere in Odisha by women SHGs. Then fourth one is that fish inclusion in Anganwadi and school feeding program. Fifth one, quality fish stock production for stocking various fish ponds and other water bodies. Then lastly, we are assisting the government to fight against COVID-19 impact. So many of the people from Odisha who were outside Odisha, they have migrated back. A reverse migration happened. They are back in Odisha. They are looking for livelihood opportunities, income opportunities. So we are assisting the government in policy guidelines, preparation, etc. Next. Next, please. Yeah, focusing on this particular CSR event. So we have identified three major opportunities for investments. One is that dried fish production by women self-help groups using low-cost solar dryers. Second one is that fish production by women SHGs in community tanks or GP tanks. And third one is that fish production is household backyard tanks. Next one, please. First one, dried fish production by women SHGs using solar dryers. Odisha is a major maritime state in India, and lot of wild capture fisheries is there, and lot of fish production is there. About 1.6 lakh tons of fish is produced from marine capture fisheries. And in coastal districts, if you see, women are engaged in traditional post-harvest handling and marketing of fish. Dried fish is one of the major business activities they are taking up for their livelihoods. But so far, in traditional way, they are drying the fish in very unhygienic manner in the beaches or in open grounds. So they are getting very low price for this fish. About 50,000 tons of dried fish is produced last year, and this is a big business of about 1,500 crores in the state. And it is also exported to faraway places like northeastern state, Manipur, and even to Bhutan, so which are landlocked countries. So they are exporting from Odisha. So this has a big business opportunity for women. So what we have done is that we under Mission Shakti. Mission Shakti is the umbrella organization, or it's a part of government, which is promoting women's self-help groups across the state. And there are about 7 lakh WSHGs across the state, and many are in the fishing communities too in the coastal districts. So we have worked with Mission Shakti and also with the Department of MSME under ODOP program. One district, one product program is going on. So in support of that also, we have supported 10 SHGs to install low-cost solar dryers, which we have procured from CIFT. It's ICR Institute. They have patented this particular model. So we have brought in here, and it's a low-cost dryer, and have trained the women SHGs to produce the dried especially small fishes from marine sources in a hygienic manner, and pack them with the FSSAI certification. So this whole program is going on at the moment. And also simultaneously, this fish, apart from open market sales, we are also thinking, and also we have connected this program for supplying the fish and fish products like fish powder for Anganwadi ICDS supplementary nutrition program and also for school feeding program. So already, as Ms. Ramona said, we have the MOU with Women and Child Development Department of Government of Odisha, and it is a pilot program is under progress in Mayurbhanj district with 50 Anganwadi centers. So through this program, we are expecting an impact in terms of women empowerment, business for them, and then improved livelihoods in the community, better food safety standards in the dried fish, then steady supply of safe and nutritious food in the community. Next one, please. Then next, number two, option two is that fish production by women self-help groups in community tanks or Gram Panchayat tanks. 3 years back, with our intervention, Government of Odisha has brought a very powerful policy for empowerment of women by involving them to long-term leasing of Gram Panchayat tanks for fish farming. So out of there are about 62,000 GP tanks in all the 30 districts of the state. So government is tagging through Mission Shakti, they are tagging the women SAGs to these GP tanks and utilizing these underutilized or unutilized GP tanks for fish farming. This is a very successful, the program of Government of Odisha and one of the 3 best programs in Mission Shakti Directorate. So far, around 6,000 GP tanks have been brought under this program. Only 10% covered, another 90% to go. So there is greater focus of the government also to promote fish farming in these GP tanks through women SAGs. And we are promoting nutrition sensitive and market oriented carp mola polyculture system in this particular GP tanks. For this particular program, we need to train the women SAGs who are completely novices, and they are new to this particular activity. So we need to bring them for fish farming, build awareness in them, and also build awareness in terms of marketing as well as from the nutrition point of view. So this is what's going on for last 4 years in Odisha, and we are expecting an impact in terms of women empowerment, nutritional benefit for the whole community, and income for women and their households. Next one, please. Then fish production in household ponds. If we go across Odisha, these multi-purpose backyard tanks, very, very small tanks of about 5 decimals, 10 decimals, less than 10 decimals, are very prevalent. And they say here, though there is no official statistics, 1 in 2 household has this kind of backyard tank. So at this moment, they are not at all utilized or underutilized for fish production. Only they produce, say, 10-20 kgs of fish per year. But actual capacity is more than 200, 300 kgs of fish they can produce. 10 times more fish that can be produced with simple interventions. And this kind of intervention in Bangladesh has brought a revolution in fish production, fish farming in the whole country there. So we are thinking this is the right direction, and already we have promoted this kind of fish farming in backyard tanks in 1,000 tanks in 3 districts, Mayurbhanj, Balasore, and Jagatsinghpur districts, and it has been very successful for last 3 years under USAID program. So this has given both income for the people by selling the bigger fish, which we call carps, Indian major carps, in the local market, where there is a huge demand for fresh desi macho, means local fish, and also the mola, the smaller fishes, smaller indigenous species, which locally called as mahurali. So mahurali is in a great demand, but we are focusing on household consumption by children and women. So this is a big program here. It's a very successful. Government is also planning to promote this particular farming system for nutrition and income gains. So next, please. Thank you very much. So next, Dr. Shakuntala will take over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arun. And thank you all for giving me the opportunity to talk today and to present some of the opportunities we see for a collaboration with the private sector in Odisha. I want to raise 2 points which Nehal Sanghavi asked specifically. So Odisha is a fish-eating state, and then why are we so concerned about getting more fish and focusing on fish? And I'll give 2 answers to that. Firstly, and this is not only Odisha, this is across the other fish-eating states of India and other countries in the world, both developed and underdeveloped countries, low-income, middle-income, and high-income countries. Even though countries have a high production of fish and a high consumption of fish at state or country level, if you look at consumption patterns of the poor and vulnerable, and especially among the poor and vulnerable, among children from 6 months of age, when it is recommended to start giving some nutritious foods, and for pregnant and lactating women, for many reasons, the consumption of nutritious foods, including fish, in these population groups are extremely low. And therefore, if we want to improve their food and nutrition security and improve nutrition within Odisha and other states like Odisha, therefore, we must focus on increasing the consumption, both the amounts and the frequency of consumption, especially in young children, women and lactating and pregnant women. That is the first 1,000 days of life. Secondly, the importance and the knowledge of fish for improved nutrition is not well known in many countries. And therefore, together with the production systems that my colleague Arun talked about, and together with making the fish accessible to poor and vulnerable and the first 1,000 days, you also have to have a social behavior change and nutrition messaging so that the benefits of fish for nutrition, benefits of fish for brain development, for cognition are well known, and that these can be put to use. Thank you. I'll go on further and I'll talk about some of the opportunities that we see for working in Odisha, and I will draw on the examples we have from other countries. First of all, I've talked about, you've all heard us talk about how important fish is for nutrition. And what is not known to many, even many who study fish, you will hear people always talk about fish being a rich source of protein. So is milk. So are peanuts, so are dals. However, fish is unique in that it contains minerals, vitamins, and essential fatty acids. So if you consider fish as a source of vitamin B12, vitamin B12 is not found in animal source foods, and vitamin B12 is extremely important for brain development and cognition. Next slide, please. And if we look here at the number of undernourished children and look across the region, India, Nepal, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, you would see that, of course, India has a high population, but you would also see that India also has high rates of undernutrition and high rates of malnourished children. Next slide, please. We are talking about Odisha, and many would ask, well, why are we concerned about Odisha, and what are the opportunities in Odisha? But if you look across India, you would see that there are many states, especially the states along the coast, that have a high fish production, and also at state level, a high fish consumption. However, as I said, we would like to have this consumption also in the group of the poor and vulnerable and women and children in the first 1,000 of days, so that we can have the best opportunities to improve nutrition and food security in these states. Next slide, please. First, let me give the example from Cambodia. So Cambodia, like Odisha, is also considered a fish-eating state, and with also high levels of undernutrition in women and children. And we know that fish plays an important part, but again in Cambodia, the frequency of consumption and amount of consumption among the poor and vulnerable and women and young children is low. Fish is considered as one of the pillars of the national dietary guidelines. And therefore, with this policy, we were able to work with partners in Cambodia to develop fish products. Next slide, please. So working with the private sector, what we did is that the government, based on its policy and based on wanting to improve nutrition and health among the poor, women and young children in Cambodia, a product with fish was developed. And this product is as a snack, and it's used in centers for malnourished children, and it's also used in schools for feeding. And it's specifically developed to be convenient, easy to eat, ready to eat, and of course it's nutritious. It's gone through all the standards for safety, and it's produced, and the government is now promoting this product as part of its program for tackling malnutrition in Cambodia. This product has also been approved by UNICEF in Cambodia, and it is recommended that this product can be used in, and fish can substitute milk-based products. Thank you. Next slide, please. If we go to Bangladesh, what we did in Bangladesh also, we developed a product and tested it in many parts of the country. It's based on a mango chutney recipe with the mango removed and dried small fish are added to the same recipe. And what we know is that this again is a convenient product that you can use as a condiment to the main meal or the meals of women. And it's an extremely rich product supporting the contributions to many micronutrients. Vitamin B12, as I measured, which is important for brain development and cognition. Vitamin A, important for eyes, iron, zinc, calcium. And also because of the other products that we have in the fish, in the fish chutney. For example, the oil, we get a high energy density, which is also important. Next slide, please. The next product we developed, and this product we also developed in Bangladesh, is fish powder. We've also used this product in Cambodia for feeding of school children. And this is just, again, as my colleague Arun told about the fish that are being dried with solar power in Odisha. So it's dried small fish that's grounded to a powder, and it's roasted beforehand, so it's convenient and it's ready to eat. And you can add 1 heap tablespoon or teaspoon to a child's meal, which makes a great contribution to the intakes of micronutrients and essential fatty acids. Next slide, please. Here is an example from Timor-Leste. As you know, Timor-Leste is a small island in the Pacific, and the fish from marine sources are used to produce a fish product, again, processed, dried, sorry, and kept in oil so that it has a high, the food safety is secured and it has a high shelf life. Next slide, please. And here in Zambia, we've also used fish powder, and we've both used it as a product that can be used at home at the household level, but a product that can be used by groups of women that when they make the fish powder, then they package it and it's sold at markets in rural areas in Zambia. Next slide, please. The next opportunity I would like to introduce is, you've heard my colleague Arun talk about pond polyculture in Odisha, and the use of the many small water bodies that are homestead ponds. So if we would add small fish to these ponds, together with large fish, for example, the Indian carp species, then you would have a polyculture of big and small fish, whereby you can sell the big fish for an income, and the small fish can be consumed to improve nutrition at household level. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to stop there and open up the open up to discussion. And some of the, as you've heard from the production, from the presentations I've given and my colleagues have given, some of the key words that I'd like us to discuss are healthy diets. And again, when I talk about healthy diets, focus on the poor and the vulnerable, women and young children, investments, entrepreneurship. This is why we were talking together with you. We'd like to hear your ideas on entrepreneurships. We know that we are working with an agricultural sector, and before you can talk about nutrition and health, of course, this is an opportunity for households to increase their income as well. Aquatic foods, you've heard us talk about fish and other aquatic foods. Well, I haven't seen very intense consumption patterns in Odisha. I know that fin fish is an important part of the diet, but it would also be nice to look at the other aquatic foods. For example, in the tribal communities, are there other nutritious aquatic foods that we can build on? We've talked a lot about community engagement with the village tanks, community engagements in the groups that do solar drying. Empowerment of women is extremely important. And of course, whatever we do should be sustainable. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thilsted, for that wonderful presentation that you and your colleagues provided for us. To all the participants that have joined this afternoon, there's an opportunity to include in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen questions and answers that anybody from the WorldFish team, or perhaps in certain circumstances even IACC or USAID, can answer. I loved the fact, Dr. Thilsted, that you gave so many wonderful global examples that have worked in other countries. So let me ask a little bit about that. And as I ask about those examples, I would also like to mention that at USAID, we're very clear that in certain circumstances, corporate philanthropy or family foundation funds or donor funds that are coming from a bilateral or a multilateral donor, or in certain circumstances, family foundation funds that are beyond CSR or in addition to CSR can have a great impact. And that's one way that we often work with corporates, as Ramona mentioned earlier on with the corporate TB pledge, for example. Another way that we often work with corporates or lenders, including banks and NBFCs, even other private individuals, is when there's a finance element to the intervention. So some access to maybe low-cost debt, or in certain circumstances, equity, can help promote entrepreneurial models, like you also alluded to. And often we see both sides of this spectrum combined in the form of some sort of blended finance facility, where there's some donor funds that get combined with some low interest debt for example, that can then help promote to get us closer to an objective that we're trying to address. Having said that, in the great examples, the South-South examples that you mentioned from Cambodia and Timor-Leste and Bangladesh, how many of those examples have been localized for the Indian context or could be localized for the Indian context? And then how many of them would actually be market driven, where somebody could purchase those from a supermarket or get on a shop or something like that? And in order to get there, do we need both donor resources and some sort of access to capital, or is one of the other sufficient? So let me pause there, hand it over to you. And again, I really invite all of our participants to be adding into the Q&A box, because I think we can then have a robust discussion for the time we have left. But until then, over to you, Dr. Thilset.
Thank you, Nehal. So you asked me about the examples. Well, if you look at the consumption patterns in Odisha compared with Bangladesh, there are quite large similarities with respect to food culture, food patterns, also the types of food that are consumed, the production systems, the seasonality. So there's a lot we can build on and already, as my colleague Arun will tell you, there have been pilots done with fish products and with the fish powder, and you can find in some shops in Odisha these products on sale. In very little of it. Now, how do you move this to another level? And then I see there are different streams, because we're still on the open market and trying to improve and wanting an opportunity to improve nutrition and health, especially in poor and vulnerable groups. For example, poor schools and mother and child health care and hard to reach tribal communities. That needs another setup than a private company, as we have in Odisha, the Falcon industry, making products for open markets. So so you need a range of different possibilities and a range of different approaches. I'll stop there.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I can see sort of a trajectory, if you will, depending on where you fit within the income bracket to be able to purchase these. I think.
And if I should say something, especially now with COVID, and if you look at a lot of the global examples that we are seeing, there is now much more focus on the right to food for the poor, and the right to food for those who can't, for now, feed themselves. And as you said, there's a trajectory. And when we talk about the right to food, we talk about both quantity and nutritious foods, and using the statement that no one should be left behind. So there is a role for governments, and there is a role for other organizations to step in.
Certainly. And Mr. Simons, you're going to add something.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the idea of blended finance is really important, and there's two sort of aspects to it. First is, of course, to develop the pilots, we need to sort of, if you like, buy down or invest to de-risk the projects and the approach. And that's where folks like yourselves and the government of Odisha step forward so that we can prove the model and understand what things need to be tweaked. As Dr. Shakuntala said, we've done this similar projects in other countries, but every situation is slightly unique. But we also are quite eager to contemplate the idea of blended finance, building from this, if you like, what I'll call the donor support, now to scaling it out. And this is where we think there's a role for the private sector. And there's also a potential role in the financial private sector, just as you said, because the solar drying technology in and of itself has been engineered to be accessible to small scale entrepreneurs. But even we all know here on this call that even a piece of technology that's been engineered for that may be financially a hurdle. And we have seen this in other models around the world where you might come up with some very innovative pay as you go or pay down. Maybe there's some interest in using mobile money credits. We're not sure, but we'd be really interested in sort of hearing the comments and feedback, and maybe some of the folks that are with us today, or if they go home and they think a little bit about it, because we are really open to the idea of understanding how the private sector might might innovatively think about getting involved in either direct investment or coming up with the financial structures to make it available to many, many more women's groups or other small scale entrepreneurs.
Yep, great. Thank you for that. On that topic of solar dryers, could you or somebody else from the team explain to us what sort of cost implications there would be? And does it make sense, or is there a possibility for self-help groups to purchase or perhaps lease their own solar dryer to be able to dry in mass, or is this something that's more appropriate for a small scale home? Any expansion on that point would be welcomed.
Sure, I'll let one of my colleagues address that are on the ground and have firsthand experience.
Arun, can we give the...
Yeah, I'll answer that question. Actually, for this solar dryer, which we have brought the unit cost, including all the accessories, packaging equipments, storage drums and other things for one unit is 2.5 lakhs, 2,50,000 rupees. And in that, government is extending, the government under ODOP program is planning to extend 40% subsidy. That is the plan. And the remaining is the WSAGs. There is a possibility of very cheap credit. I mean, very affordable credit for them. I'm not sure is zero interest or not. I'm really not sure, but that is what we are targeting. And also we require, say, for only if the WCD department decides to go ahead and scale it up for all the 60,000 Anganwadi centers for entire state, then we would require about 16,000 tons of dried fish per year. For that, we require around 1,000 numbers of this kind of solar dryers. So, through this mechanism of both government support and also a cheap, kind of zero interest rate credit also should be extended, in my opinion. And also there is opportunity for private players to enter, CSRs to enter and help to facilitate that part, 60% credit part of the whole program. If not also for giving that, taking part in that subsidy program also, kind of financial assistance to women SHGs. This is also possibility. And as far as the business case, what we have seen is that they can generate, 70 kg of dried fish for every one cycle. One cycle means 1.5 days. So now presently they are drying it for, say, over nearly 3 days in the open condition. Under solar dryers is only 1.5 days to the maximum. And each solar dryer can produce about 16 tons of dried fish per year. Only 8 months are working. The other months are, the fishing ban period is that they can't produce it. So, and the turnover per annual turnover per WSAG, per women SHGs is around 80 lakh rupees, giving an income of decent income of 6,000 to 7,000 rupees per member of the women SHG per month. So 6,000 to 7,000 what government is also targeting at this moment. So I think, and also the payback period is 8 months. That is the thing. Thank you.
Great. I would invite WorldFish, perhaps post this call, to see if there's any way we could share with IACC, who then in turn shares it with their members, a list of these sorts of opportunities with actual figures attached to them. Because I think, as you just nicely laid out, Dr. Arun, that gives us a great idea of the true investment potential and how women in this particular example are going to be able to really either earn an income that otherwise they wouldn't be earning or supplement a current income, which is wonderful to hear. What other sorts of potential expenses would SHGs or maybe households incur in addition to the solar dryer to really have this business model maybe be successful? For example, are there expenses related to hatcheries or other types of inputs?
Yeah, in fish farming in backyard tanks or even in community tanks, that is a very good business case. For community tank or even for backyard tank, the unit cost is that 1,50,000 rupees. So in 1,50,000 rupees, if they invest, they can harvest about 2.5 tons, means 2,500 kilograms of fish in 6 to 7 months period. So today's price per kg of fish at farm gate is 120, 130 rupees. It fluctuates at say 125 rupees. Then your return, the sale price is somewhere around 3 lakh rupees. So for investment of 1.5 lakh rupees, you are getting within 6 to 7 months 3 lakh rupees of sales revenue, and that means 1.5 lakh rupees profit, net profit for these women self-help groups. So if there are 10 people in each self-help groups, they can generate in one crop, they can generate 15,000 rupees per member, which is a decent income, considering that fish farming is not their main activity, because they have other activities also, like broomstick making and handicrafts, and also they are involved in THR, the take-home ration packaging and supply to WCD programs, stitching school uniforms for children, all these various activities they are involved in. So fish farming in GP tanks will be the additional income for them. And similarly in backyard tanks, the investment, since the pond sizes are very small, say 10 decimal, the investment is 15,000 rupees per tank. So in that, they can produce a fish worth of around 30,000-40,000 rupees over 6 to 7 months or 8 months. So then, most of these ponds get dried during summer months, and some in the coastal area, they can be perennial. So you get water all the times. But in hinterlands like in Kala, KBK zone and other Western Odisha, there is an acute shortage of water also. So there we cannot expect two crops, only one crop that we can expect, and they can make a decent profit of around 15,000 to 20,000 rupees over investment of 15,000 rupees per tank of 10 decimals. But what is important here is that since Odia people eat 95% of the households consume the fish, that they wouldn't sell it in the market. I think these backyard tank people, they directly harvest, every weekly harvest will be there, once or twice, and harvest 1 or 2 kg of fish, and they use it for their own household consumption, both big fish as well as small fish. So this is what's happening at the moment in Balasore district, Mayurbhanj district, Bhadrak districts also. So also we have seen this in Koraput and this side Ganjam also, where these small tanks, backyard tanks are highly prevalent. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Dr. Arun. So you are citing example after example where enterprise-led development or an entrepreneurial solution can be implemented based on what you are doing already. I think from the CSR perspective, obviously there are opportunities, as have been laid out already, for folks to join. And one thing that I want to commit to you, the WorldFish team today, is that post this discussion, I will also take your project to the Indian Impact Investors Council So perhaps we can try to see if we can have a similar discussion with folks that are impact investors. So you can hear both from potential interested parties from the CSR side, as well as impact investors. I believe in my own limited frame of reference that impact investors are doing a lot in India and tend to be more involved with projects related to clean energy, environment, affordable private schools, and health, and don't really have visibility on a project like this as much as I think there's an opportunity for them. So we'll make sure that this discussion makes it out into another event, something similar to, like this, where we get investors involved too. And this discussion that we have, we have 21 attendees, I believe, on the call today. There are some folks that are from the investment community, and there are some from, again, more from the CSR side, including a couple of PSUs who also may have a real interest in this topic. So let me just invite the attendees as well as other panelists. If you have questions, we have a total of 35 participants. If you've got questions, please stick it into the Q&A. I do have a couple more questions, but let me turn it over to Mr. Simas again until then.
Yep. Well, thank you very much, Nehal. I just wanted to advocate that we have found we are reaching out actively to the impact investor community globally, because the convergence of sustainable entrepreneurial ventures that have an economic return, but are simultaneously facilitating, as we call, gender neutral economic development opportunities and nutrition and sort of improvement of health outcomes for children. These are very compelling stories, and the impact investors can intervene at a range of scales, right? I mean, as we've just heard, you could intervene at a scale of just a single pond or a single group, or you could invest at a scale of a district. I mean, it's a very sort of scalable opportunity, and so this is sort of an area that WorldFish is actively sort of engaging with now, and we would absolutely love to have that opportunity of facilitated conversation with the Indian Impact Investor Network.
Great. Does the same hold true for CSR? Is it scalable at the pond level as well as the community village level, self-help group level, or is there some sort of minimum commitment that you would want a company to make through their CSR resources to actually have an impact here?
I think, and then I'll ask my colleagues again that are sort of focused on the ground to comment. I think if a CSR partner was coming, to make it worthwhile for everybody's outcome, I think that we might have sort of a bit more of a minimum ask, because there's some sort of scale up. We'd want to make sure it's done to reach a number of folks, and I presume that the CSR oriented donor or funder would want to have a project that was reaching some sort of scale as well. But perhaps one of my colleagues has a little bit more detail about that.
Yeah, actually, every year we are adding 1,500 GP community tanks in Odisha under government program. And we can easily add another, say, 1,500 easily. We can do it in the existing, through existing government machineries to find out and the GP tanks and women SAGs and tag them and bring to the scale. So, I mean, the private sectors can take part. I mean, CSR can take part in providing the input support in line with what government is doing, because we don't want to have another different model there. So, I mean, to avoid any confusions among the community, it should be in sync with what we are doing at the moment, and also, help them for the remaining 40% of their financial requirement, connect to the banks for the credits. That is also a possibility there with the cheaper credits. So this is the proposal. Yeah. And one more thing I just want to tell here. You might have seen, the high profitability of fish farming. In agriculture, whole agriculture and allied sector in India, Now, Government of India has identified fisheries as one of the best sectors to invest because of the very high profitability, and there is shortage of fish and a lot of fish requirement in India, and it is the only sector which is growing at a rate of, say, in Odisha itself, it has grown at 14% CAGR over last 5 years. So this is one of the best performing sectors, not only in Odisha, but also West Bengal, Bihar, Jharkhand, and Assam and other eastern parts, because they can locally produce. There is so much of demand for fish, and if there is spread, also the poor people can also get it, local, affordable, other varieties, small fishes and other things. They can get more options for them. Fresh fish will come. People will eat more fish if there is more freshness. Now, fish in eastern market is dominated by Andhra fish. Andhra fish in Andhra, it is commercial scale. It is grown and exported to other states up to Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, and all. So we can have it locally. A lot of ponds, water resources are huge in these states. We can use them, and also unemployment rate, livelihood opportunity is very huge in these places. So we can locally produce fish and make them generate more income for the households. Yeah, thank you.
Super. I mean, truly is a triple bottom line intervention. You will see financial returns, you will see health and nutritional outcomes improved, and you'll also see good environmental benefits as well. So I love how we can check all of those boxes with an intervention like this. Excellent. I just have one more question. I know we're getting closer to the end of our hour and a half that we had set aside for this discussion. One more question to maybe end on somewhat of a lighter note. I am a vegetarian now, but I used to eat fish while growing up. And I remember as a child, I really wanted to avoid fish, especially as a school child, because I just thought the taste was so strong. Is there a need in a state like Odisha? Because you had mentioned earlier about the school lunch program as well. Is there a need to convince these school children that fish is good for you, or is it such a staple part of their diet that they're automatically taking onto it and appreciating the option of having fish during lunch? We'd just love to hear how that has played out.
Acceptability of fish is so much here. We have we have included fish in 24 schools here, including child care centers also, special schools and child care centers. Fish, because of fish, children consume more quantity of rice and other items in the plate. So that much attraction fish has, because children and people in Odisha are naturally attracted towards fish, and they consume it, so they enjoy. It's not only nutrition and other things, but also there is inherent something, I don't know, genetical or something like the cultural, but they enjoy it. Whole process of enjoying the meals increases when the fish is there in the plate. So this is what we have seen. And when we have told, see, many of our bureaucrats, for example, WCD bureaucrat, Ms. Anu Garg is from Uttar Pradesh. She told, I'm not eating any fish or even an egg, she is not eating. When we initially said, okay, let's go for fish, she was a bit apprehensive, how we can bring fish. But then development commissioner and other agriculture production commissioner, they are the local people from Odisha. They said, every day we require fish, 2 times, afternoon lunch and dinner. So what do you say, Anu? We want this fish, and let us include the fish. Let us make children consume more of food and nutritious fish. This is a very good proposal. We have made some kind of awareness pitch also in the bureaucratic levels. So there is totally positive sign in the government also to include fish. Yeah, thank you.
May I add something, Arun? So what's important and what we are seeing in many countries, and this also holds true for school feeding programs or in the Angawati centers, you must have a product that's of course, desirable, it must be acceptable, safe, and it must be convenient. So even at home or in schools where you will be making a dish with fish, you must ensure that that product is convenient, and it's also, in some instances, like the fish powder, it's ready to eat. Because if you look at one of the largest constraints across the board that is given for children not having nutritious foods and instead getting a packet of biscuits or a packet of noodles, it's the time it takes to access the nutritious food, to prepare the nutritious food, and to feed the nutritious food. You can give a child a biscuit, and that child will be able to eat that biscuit on her own. But if you have to feed a child a dish with fish, you have to have the time to spend to feed the child. So there are certain considerations that we must take into, and this holds true for fish, but for many other nutritious foods.
Excellent. Great points. Okay, let me just quickly turn it over to any of our other colleagues at WorldFish for any final thoughts before we hear our closing remarks from Ms. Tana Lanark-Richard. Anybody else for some closing thoughts?
Hi, Nehal, Tana here. I just wanted to actually add to what Shakuntala was saying with regards to the importance of kind of building behaviors and preference for fish. I think we do have actually quite a few sort of collaborations also with civil society and community organizations that help do that. And I think there is the question is a bit of a two-pronged issue. I think on one hand, it's about, getting people and children sort of, and mothers in a sense, to sort of like and prefer sort of consumption of fish and include it in their diets. But generally, I think what's also important is to sort of improve people's knowledge about good nutrition in general, in terms of having that balanced diet and sort of looking at, not only sort of consuming processed foods or one type of, carbs and stuff like that, but actually having a balanced sort of meal that includes protein and rich sources of nutritious sort of micronutrients, as well as like vegetables and rice. And so we actually have quite a few sort of projects across Asia where we work with both the private sector, but also with local communities that help sort of do that learning and knowledge building at the community level.
Great, thanks for that. For that point. And you have the floor, so it's perfect. You can just continue on for the concluding remarks. Over to you.
Thanks, Nehal. So I'm very honored to actually be saying a few closing remarks of this exceptional event, which hopefully marks the beginning of an exciting new journey together. I want to first take the opportunity to thank our gracious host, President Surapaneni, and the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, as well as Ms. Ramona Hamzaoui, the acting USAID India Mission Director, as well as all the teams that are working behind the scenes to bring this event together. To us at WorldFish, the IACC and the USAID are special, like-minded partners when it comes to our vision for mobilizing a diverse constellation of stakeholders to make sure that science-based solutions in terms of innovative technologies, as well as policy, market, and community interventions are effectively supported and scaled to ensure improved nutrition, health, and livelihoods for millions of vulnerable communities across the state of Odisha. At WorldFish, we also believe that multidisciplinary and cross-sector collaboration is at the heart of scientific discovery and the formulation of innovative solutions to tackle complex problems that have great significance to human well-being, but also environmental sustainability. Therefore, what we're doing today is building links, sharing knowledge and resources, and also hopefully consolidating our collaboration across policy development and market actors in Odisha and India, because we believe this will be critical to our success. So the global business model for delivering research business innovations has been evolving rapidly. Forward-looking companies and also social entrepreneurs with the ambition to build sustainable businesses in aquaculture and fisheries need the support of scientific research institutions like WorldFish to try, test, develop, and also pilot innovation products and services like the ones that we sort of hopefully shared with you to generate not only new business opportunities, create new markets, and boost local economies, but also address critical social and economic development challenges, particularly those related to malnutrition, public health, or even climate change. On the other hand, public funded research institutions like ours have limited means and sometimes limited infrastructure to effectively turn science innovations into commercially viable products, services, and enterprises. So thus there is this value gap that is created between scientific and entrepreneurial talent, which remain largely disconnected from one another. So that is why for us at WorldFish, it's so important to reach out and engage with actors across the public and private sectors to help bridge that gap in order to co-create this value by implementing science-based innovations for lasting transformational impact. We also need a well-trained workforce with a variety of skills and competencies in both science and business. And this is where our partnership and collaboration with the private sector and the critical support of actors like IACC and USAID can make a tremendous difference in making sure that sustainable development in Odisha is guided by sound data and evidence, particularly when it comes to taking research innovations in fish and aquatic food systems to market. Thanks to the MOU that we signed last month with the government of Odisha and with support from USAID, we're also looking forward to scaling some of the innovations and lessons learned to markets, businesses, and local communities in other states across India, particularly in those states that can leverage their fisheries resources and experience with aquaculture to address malnutrition and create improved business and livelihood opportunities for all. As I hope you have seen today, we believe that fish and other aquatic foods offer many untapped business and socioeconomic development opportunities. They must occupy a central place in India's efforts to meet the goals of the Sustainable Development Agenda, where the private sector has a catalytic role to play in this transformational change. And we have a unique opportunity to leverage aquaculture and fish value chains to turn current growth trends that we see in Odisha and India, in urbanization, technology adoption, and entrepreneurship into inclusive opportunities and shared prosperity. To accomplish this, we need the kind of scientific ingenuity, which I hope we've demonstrated today through some of our work, but we also need business know-how and expertise in order to nurture and build strong science capacity, entrepreneurship, and a skilled labor force to shape a conducive policy framework and enabling business environment, and also create a well-functioning market with meaningful participation and inclusion of vulnerable communities, particularly women and young people. This event today marks an important milestone we should all celebrate as we work together to build a vibrant innovation space to shape a shared vision and a roadmap for transformational change with aquatic foods in Odisha. And we look forward to building and strengthening our partnership with many of you in the future, in the weeks and months to come. Thank you, and I wish you a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tana, and thank you for all the panelists and attendees. As mentioned, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. We look forward to carrying it forward. Thank you, everybody.